adding to the already huge mountain of legal issues, New York Attorney General Letitia James had filed a civil fraud lawsuit against former President Donald Trump, his real estate business, and his adult children on Wednesday. In fact, in a press conference, James announced a suit. I want to give you, just a small clip of that today. Take a look.
Mr. Trump and the Trump Organization repeatedly and persistently manipulated the value of assets to induce banks to lend money to the Trump Organization on more favorable terms than would otherwise have been available to the company, to pay lower taxes, to satisfy continuing loan agreements, and to induce insurance companies to provide insurance coverage for higher limits and at lower premiums.
All right, so look, basically the entire suit is based on Donald Trump's shady business practices in the state of New York. So I need to remind you, this is not a criminal lawsuit. That said, could there possibly be anything criminal that they find in discovery? This goes through. Well, there is certainly a chance of that. But at this point, this is a civil lawsuit that carries a potential $250 million in penalties and possibly could bar him from doing business in New York. So that's likely the worst of it, at least as far as I can understand this. So now, among other allegations, the suit claims that the former president's Florida estate and golf resort Mar-a-Lago was valued as high as $739 million, or about 10 times more than what it was actually worth. It should have been valued about 1/10 of that amount, according to the investigation that has been ongoing for several years, undertaken by the DA. So now the suit also says that the higher valuation was based on the false premise that it was unrestricted property and could be developed for residential use, even though Mr. Trump himself had signed deeds donating his residential development rights and sharply restricting changes to the property. CNN also reported a list of defendants here, or at least a partial list, which includes, of course, Donald Trump Jr., Eric Trump, Ivanka Trump, as well as Alan Weisselberg, Jeffrey McConney, the Donald J. Trump Revocable Trust, the Trump Organization Incorporated, and other businesses associated with Trump. So, like I said, civil lawsuit. I don't think it's something that should be okay. So what I'm trying to say is lower your expectations. Now, look, more details on this. First, earlier this month, James rejected a settlement offer from Trump's lawyers, setting the stage for this lawsuit to happen. The New York Times notes that if the case does go to trial and Mr. Trump loses, which seems to be like a pretty good chance, the judge could impose these financial penalties of up to $250 million and restrict the former president's business operations in New York. Now, this was hyped up by, James, and I can understand why. But to me, it feels underwhelming. At least personally, I'm underwhelmed by this. Okay. I think that there's a lot of people, online, especially, Resistance Twitter, etc., where they're making a huge deal about it. But I think that this is, and I think in the grand scheme of things, going to be rather small potatoes. I don't, of course, have any doubt that he did this. Of course he did. Look, Donald Trump is a gigantic con man and a complete and total grifter. Of course, they're going to find evidence or have evidence that he did so. And yeah, if he's found guilty, as in they have the evidence and convinces a jury, that would be great. Wonderful. But then what does that mean? I mean, Donald Trump just probably, declare himself bankrupt again. As if he hasn't already done that. So again, I'm not super excited about this particular lawsuit. Okay, he's not going to go to jail. This is not a criminal lawsuit. So that's it. I mean, now there are other investigations, and some of them are criminal. For example, there's a federal investigation into his handling classified documents that produced an FBI raid on Mar-a-Lago. That's really important. The Justice Department investigation into the January 6th riot at the Capitol, and the investigation by a Georgia prosecutor into efforts to try to overturn the 2020 election. I think that's really what I care about the most. Are these, criminal investigations going to put this guy in? Because look, at this point, he belongs in prison. Honestly. I don't really care as much about, he can't do his business in New York. No, the guy should be in prison. He's a literal criminal and tried to overturn our country. Tried to install himself as a dictator. No, again, underwhelmed. I'm super underwhelmed. Unless, of course, this may lead to any sort of criminal, evidence that's turned in, again, through discovery, that could, help the criminal cases against him. I'm not really interested. I'm just not. That said, I want to give you Trump's response, who said, actually, you know what? Before I get to Trump's response, let's talk about, again, one of the possible criminal investigations that, could have happened, but it generally didn't, right? You had the former Manhattan District Attorney, Cyrus Vance Jr., that was working on a criminal case against Donald Trump. Now, he left that job. His replacement, Alvin Bragg, is notoriously weak. He decided to basically put this case in the back burner, despite one of the former prosecutors. By the way, there were two prosecutors that were working on that case. They resigned because Alvin Bragg decided not to really pursue it. Okay? And so that's despite one of these prosecutors in the New York Times, in his resignation letter that was published in the New York Times, he said, look, we had him dead to rights. Yes, the office had enough evidence to charge Mr. Trump with numerous felonies. And yet, all we can do is, the best that you can do is get a civil fraud case in New York City. Again, I'm not going against, I'm not ragging on Letitia James. She does a great job, and she's, excellent. But if this is all that we can do, if it's all that they can do, it just doesn't seem to be enough, in my opinion. You can disagree, of course. But I just feel, I feel like this is going to be a rather small thing, and it's just incredibly overhyped. This guy's, again, a classic criminal. We know that, but he's even more dangerous than defrauding some investors. That said, let's get to Trump's response here. Here's what he said on Truth Social, or, well, his favorite.
Truth Central.
Another witch hunt by a racist Attorney General, Letitia James, who failed in her run for governor, getting almost zero support from the public, and is now doing poorly against Law and Order AG candidate, highly respected Michael Henry. I never thought that this case would be brought until I saw her really bad poll numbers. She's a fraud who campaigned on a Get Trump platform, despite the fact that the city is one of the crime and murder disasters of the world under her watch. In another post, he says, Attorney General Letitia Peekaboo James. I don't understand that nickname. I really, really don't. But honestly, ridiculous nicknames. But says, a total crime-fighting disaster in New York, spending all of her time fighting for the very powerful and well-represented banks and insurance companies who were fully paid, made a lot of money, and never had a complaint again about me. Instead of fighting murder and violent crime. No, let me just stop there. That's the new conservative talking point, by the way. Everything's about how, horrible, crime. Be scared, be afraid, be distracted. That's all they have. It says, which is killing New York State. She is a failed AG whose lack of talent in the fight against crime is causing record numbers of people and companies to flee New York. Bye bye. Hey, well, you might not be able to do business in New York anymore, Trump. So, I don't know. But look, anyway, understand that my cynicism, I'm really struggling with it here, okay? I want to be hopeful that some of the other investigations will be able to prove the criminality and then be able to deal actually appropriate consequences for those alleged crimes. And of course, he'd have to be convicted of them. There'd have to be evidence, etc. And he's, of course, got the right to go through the appropriate legal process. But again, at the moment, I'm just really not getting my hopes up for anything to happen on this, because honestly, I think that he could delay, appeal, etc. for years and years and years, even if he's found guilty. And of course, be able to declare himself bankrupt and avoid the most serious, penalties for what he's alleged to have done. So again, I'm just not feeling it today. Please tell me why I'm wrong.